Welcome for our scheduled long-term plan workshop. It will be recorded for us to ensure that we've got a record of what's said and you can go back and listen to it. And welcome online to Sean, Ian, and Stephen. We're just wondering, I was just talking to the CEO and just wondering if
is your thing on? Because that'll help.
Sorry.
In particular.
Oh, got me. Oh, that's can't get used to that echo. See, Mr. Saunders and I were just wondering if Mr. Donnelly was in the best of form, because there's only 13 slides and there's normally about 50, but we know this is just a warm-up and an introduction and getting us back into LTP mode. We've got some absolute deadlines that we have to meet, and going through this process now will get us back into LTP mode and ensure that we meet those deadlines and give us plenty of time to work out, continue this very good process. So I'm going to hand straight to you, Mr. Donnelly. Welcome to 2000. Oh, we had you the other day anyway, so over to you, sir.
And I'll remember my speaker as soon as I mentioned it to you. What we've got is purpose of this workshop is we want to run you through rates modelling that we've done since the 13th of December, when we brought a whole lot of proposed changes to the council meeting and you agreed a raft of those changes. So there's a little bit here. The slides, yes, there's not a lot. A lot of it is stuff that we've already had. We've updated a little bit, but some of it we haven't. And really, the bulk of it will be the modelling stuff, which will switch on to Sean, and he'll do that live. Because since 13 December, what we've done is we've actually got a rates model. It's a piece of software called IBIS, and we've now loaded all of our rates data and all the existing revenue and financing, or rates policy, and the new policy, or the proposed one, in there, and now we're able to run all of the data through there and see what the movements are, and we can do that right down to all the individual property levels. And ultimately, this is the model, and that's where the data will come from for the rates calculator, for people to see, go in and query their own individual property. So we're running it out of there because there's a huge amount of data, and we only updated with the current version of where year one is at for the LTP. Only updated those numbers yesterday, and then you've got to run it through the model and then spit it out. So it's easier to do a bit of that detail all live. But the rest of it, I'll just run through some slides that'll give you just a bit of a summary of where we got to at the end of the year on 13 December. Just a bit of context, which is the current year's rates, how they currently look. Then we've got Sean will run you through the modelling, and there's sensitivity analysis and a whole raft of rates examples. And it's quite interactive, so he'll be doing it in not directly into the model, because we haven't put it in our server, but in a whole raft of Excel basically data dumps that we've got that then have the summary information in them. So that's the first bit of it. Second bit of it is to have a discussion around UAGC, because that's the piece that we haven't got to. Now that we know how much the general rate amount is, we can have the discussion on how much of that do you want to see as a UAGC. And we've got some analysis that shows how high the UAGC could go, down to what the impact is on not having a UAGC at all. And then some again, Sean has some modelling in there that will run through direct in the direct on screen. And then on there, the purpose, I've got transport deficits, Alex, flood, and steads are mentioned in later slides, because those were they should actually be in the rates modelling, but those were three things that weren't included, but I'll touch on them in the slides coming up.
What's that?
What's that?
Steeds.
Oh, stop, truck effluent disposal.
No, just before you go further, I'm just wondering, and I should have highlighted to the team, could you just explain to councillors what you're trying to get out of this session from us and what direction you're seeking?
Oh, the rates modelling is really just informing so that you can see what now those changes from 13 December have done, and see some of the distributions and the movements, and just you know, from the point of view of getting some comfort of, is there anything there that you weren't expecting and might be of concern. The UAGC want to just have the discussion on where you might be thinking. But all of this will culminate 2 weeks' time, alongside you know, an LTP paper to council on how much our overall spend and rates increases are. We'll also put in a draft financial strategy and the draft of the revenue and financing policy itself that will incorporate all this. So this will just give you more background information, like, for example, based on what the discussion might be, we'll sort of say, okay, well, that will include a UAGC of X. You know, currently we've got a UAGC that's set at the 25% of general rate. You know, if we sort of get the vibe that perhaps the preferred option will be to have it different, then that's what we'll amend and run through for 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Yep. So rates modelling. So I'll do this this one here, summary. This just outlines what's on the next slide. So I'll flip straight to the next slide and then tell you what the previous slide said about it. This is the table of what the current rates are and what the proposed rates were for 13 December. So, and that's pretty much what we ended up with. That's what you approved. The difference is this still states that transport would be at targeted general 60-40 split, whereas the decision was for 80-20, and it's 80-20 that's been modelled. Just haven't updated this slide. And down towards the bottom, fourth from the bottom, Alexandra Flood had that we would be looking to do a new rate, you know, to be targeted 80, general 20, and the rate units would be were to be confirmed. What we've done is looking at the area that we potentially would model that at, where the engineering has sort of looked and gone, they need to do quite a lot of work on it. The current rate for Alexandra Flood is based on a district general rate. We've done away with all the district general rates. So what we've now done is said that targeted 80%, we've funded it out of the central river management, which is effectively sort of as close to the current method as what we've got. The only other way to do it would be to go and define a mapped area, and we haven't had the time to sit down and work through that. So that's what we've done with that one. Steads wasn't covered in the table here because, again, Steads was one of the district general rates. It was going to a general rate just for Central Otago. So as I said, all the district general rates have gone. When we refer to general rate in the new model now, a general rate means a regional general rate. There's no such thing as a district general rate. If anything's going just to a district, it'll be via a targeted rate. So Steads was then an outlier. The other thing that, you know, had like we had harbour management was going to district general rates, but there's a new harbour management rate. So looking at that one, when we thought, well, where does that go? We could have come back and said, well, we should set up a new targeted rate just for that. It's approximately $80,000 per year. And looking at it, we just thought it didn't warrant having its own targeted rate. So we've just unrolled, that's now funded via general rates. That one's there. And then the other thing that I'll cover a bit later on when you see the numbers is transport deficits. The number that we've got for year one includes repayment of transport deficits, because we've now gone through and modelled how we potentially do that. All three of those things, because you haven't actually formally made decisions on the Alex Flood area or steads or the transport deficits, that will come to you in 2 weeks as part of the part of that paper to say this is how we're proposing to do it. And again, you can say yes or no to it. And if you want it different, then we'll go away and look at doing it different. This is just how we've set it up now to make sure that we've modelled all the rates that everything that needs to be rated somehow.
And just to confirm too, Nick, obviously we've had an indication from Wakaratahi about some changes we need to consider to Dunedin public transport. At the moment, we've still included the preferred option from before Christmas, which is those significant increase in services. So until if a different decision is made, obviously it'll be updated to reflect that. But at the moment, the model's built with the option that was voted on before Christmas. So I guess just flagging those in the numbers you'll see today, but we're obviously working through what an alternative might be, given the recent communication.
And Nick, what you're bringing to us in 2 weeks is the basis of our consultation document.
Yep.
That we
So
do have to consult on.
So the overall spend, activity, spend and structure, and how that's funded. That's proposed to be included in the consultation document. Of course, we do that February because if there's anything there that you go, no, we want to see something different, as Richard said, we've got to look at transport, and then we then based on you saying yes, we're okay with it being this, then that's what we'll build the consultation document for adoption in March.
Thank you. Elliot?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm the specifics of the farm plan, right?
Push your button.
Alright. Because you put it as land use and area, does that mean there's a specific defined area that if you're below, you don't have to do a farm plan, you don't have to pay the uniform farm plan rate, and if you're above it, you do, regardless of whether you're just a tiny bit above it or you're the biggest farm in the region?
Yeah, so land use is
20 hectares, 5 hectares for horticulture.
yeah. So and it's defined on the specific type of land use. Yep, and then it's got to be above that size. So as we said there's we need to confirm it, but there'll be approximately 3,500. That rate you won't see it in this analysis because it doesn't kick in until year 2. As we progress through that and we know more about it, and assuming that it kicks in year 2, we'll be coming back going, now we know exactly how many. And the beauty of having it all mentioned in this is that effectively we're consulting on it as part of our RFP that applies to the LTP. Then we won't have to do an LTP amendment, but we will have to do engagement to make sure that everybody's aware that this is how it's finally panned out. But it won't necessitate a full-on re-audit and everything for what is, actually going to be a relatively small amount. Right. So these the next slide, and I'll do the same as what I did rather than going through these. I'll just bring the next slide up so that you can, and I'll talk to what those things show. So this, I'd actually sent this out pre-Christmas. It was the supplementary info, but I didn't actually talk to those because it was council meeting rather than workshop. So this is just our current year's rates, and it just shows the distribution of what we rated this year. So you can see the number of ratepayers. So the majority of them, 55, almost 56,000, are in Dunedin. That's top left. Top right is the rates paid by district. So again, you can see total rates. Dunedin pays most of it, but then you see the two bars, or the two general and targeted next to that. It's actually Dunedin is heavily weighted towards targeted rates, and this is based on the old model. So that's because there's a lot of flood and transport rates in Dunedin. But when you look at general rates, you can see there that in total, Queenstown is paying almost as much general rate as as Dunedin. So you can see the distribution there, just across total, general and targeted. Average rates by district down in the bottom left. You can see across the whole region, our average rate is $517, the green bar, but it varies across the districts, with Queenstown paying the highest average at $595, and then Dunedin.
Just in terms of Mosgiel, is that caught up in?
Tim?
Central. Oh, sorry.
So you can hear.
Yeah, just in terms of the demographics, Mosgiel, is that caught up in the Clutha, or is that shown as Dunedin? Is it?
Dunedin City.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a little bit confusing because from a election constituency point of view, it does flow down with Clutha, but this is done on TA boundaries. Yep. And then average when you split out the general rate, you can see Queenstown currently pays the highest average general rate. So across the whole region, our average is 262, but Queenstown pays more than that. All the others pay less, although Central Otago is pretty much smack on the average. And then just rates by land use. You can see there 61% of our rates, this is the rates dollars, is attributed to our residential property. Next biggest slice of the pie is rural, and you can probably add, you've got rural and lifestyle at 16, and 9 is 25%. We quite often talk about rural and lifestyle together. So yeah, between those three, that's definitely the majority of the pie. So that's really just for with a little bit of, that's just to give you a little bit of context, just to keep in the back of your mind as we go through. So then the modelling, which Sean will run you through in more detail, but this is a summary of it. So down the left-hand side are our rate types, put general and the UAGC together. So then that first subtotal is the total general rate. And then we've got all the various other targeted rates down the side. And we get a grand total of, the first column is the current year, 23-24. So 64.3 million, that's how much we rated this year, and that's GST inclusive. Some of the other numbers that we're showing you, are exclusive, but that's GST inclusive. Then we were at the next column is year one of the LTP, and it's using the old rating model, or the old RFP. So it's allocating it up on exactly the same basis as the current year. And you can see there we've got a 13, almost $14 million increase in rates, bearing in mind that the transport rates there down the bottom do include a little bit over 3.8 million in deficit repayment in year one. So third column is the variance, which is comparing year one of the LTP to the current year, and doing that, both of those columns are on the same rating allocation basis. But the next two columns is more what we're focusing on when Sean gets into the modelling, which is then comparing that old RFP model for year one to the new RFP model for year one. Now, previously, when I did all the analysis pre-Christmas, it was always based on the current year's rates. So it was based on that $64 million number. This is now based on what people would actually see. And then you can see there, so the 78.258 million is the same for both of those. Overall, the variance comes out, the box in the bottom right-hand corner comes out at 0, but you can see where that right-hand column shows where there's the redistribution of rates between the various rating categories. And ones that you'll see there, like if you come down below general rate's actually dropping down 2.5 million. But catchment management is a new rate that we've brought in to capture all of that biodiversity, the previous rural water quality, and you know, some other water implementation. So that's 6.8 million. And obviously a big chunk of that has come out of general rate, and it's come out of the rural water quality rate, which is about halfway down the -1.8. And then you've also got down the bottom the ones that have dropped, the transport rates. The targeted transport rates have actually dropped, and that's because we've now got the allocation into general rate.
Kevin.
Yep, Tim.
Sorry, Nick, just my eyes started glazing over. I couldn't quite understand what purpose of this table is for. What are we trying to identify here?
So the key thing is the right-hand side.
The year one new RFP.
Yeah, so year one new RFP is how the rates are looking currently in the model, using what the rates changes you decided in 13 December are. And then what we're doing is we're comparing that back to, if you were comparing that to the old RFP, that's the next column on the left. And then the variance there shows how rates have moved between targeted and general rates or types of targeted.
It's just the right-hand side. It's just the right-hand side of that table that we really want to look at.
Yeah. So but we've sort of put all three, because what will happen is when ratepayers look, they'll be comparing what their 23-24 bill was to what the column on the right is. It's because they're going to get a combination of rates moving around, the RFP at reallocation, and rates that increase because of their spend and spend increases that need to be paid. Yep. So that's why we've got it that way. But when we talk about the consultation item, we'll be talking about the right-hand side, which is what we've done about how we re-slice the pie. Yep. And when Sean goes through, what you'll be getting is more detail on those two right-hand columns. So he'll be showing the model comparing year one old RFP and year one new RFP.
Elliot.
This is all like making a whole lot of sense and stuff. I was just wondering if you could remind me what RFP actually stands for.
Oh, revenue and financing policy.
Cool.
Yep.
So Nick, just quickly on those numbers, the 64 to 78 is a 21% increase. But
Yep.
we did do our figures around taking out transport.
Yep.
And so that still leaves an 11.5% increase in all the other rating areas.
Yeah, that's about right. So back pre-Christmas, because we've done a whole lot of work around,
Yep.
done some reallocations around the model, and then there's been some changes that we made. Obviously, brought in the transport deficit repayment, so that's part of it. So and then there's just been some other changes that we've made along the lines, like that letter that came out about transport, about QLDC not funding 600,000. So there's been some changes around that. And what it did was pre-Christmas, again, we'll go through all of this in 21 Feb.
Yep.
Pre-Christmas, we were at a total rates increase of just under 17. I think it was 16.7. And then we backed out transport.
Yep.
And it was 9.7,
Yep.
excluding transport. Now with the changes that we've done of reallocating a few things and putting in the transport deficit, that 16.7 has gone up to what you're seeing here, which is almost 22%.
Yep.
Yep. Taking out all the transport, and you do need to take out not just Dunedin transport, what you're seeing there, and Wakatipu, because that's just the targeted rate. Yeah, there's actually still allocation into general rate, and there's the impact of those other the regional proposals, which increase rates. When you back all of the transport out, general and targeted,
yep.
We're down to excluding transport an 11% increase. Now we're still working on that.
Cool.
And we've got, got some stuff to do, but because we're aware that pre-Christmas, we said that was at 9.7, and what you indicated was, under 10, probably okay. You'd like to see it come down. In fact, it's gone slightly the other way, but we're still
Working through.
working through the model. But effectively what was, if you like, 16.7 and 9.7 has now gone to 22 and 11.
Yep.
But there's a massive amount of transport deficit repayment, and
Yep.
we'll run you through that in February, because exactly, you might not agree with what we've put in here, but for the sake, we needed to model
Perfect.
something so that we've got the model set up, and then it's relatively easy. We can change that number to 0,
Yep.
or we can change it to 20 million,
Yep.
and then it's just
Thank
just
you.
depends what the percentage you want.
Still, the plan is to get you something at the end of February that is consistent with what we brought through before Christmas, which is what I guess ELT will be working on over the next week or so, because that's the challenge we've got, just with the way everything's sort of flowed out now that the model's being built and everything's being added in. But that's getting the number back to what we discussed before Christmas is what the intention will be for that February meeting.
Thank you.
Right. So that's the overview. Then the next bit is Sean is going to jump in and do some modelling live. And this is modelling on, like on Excel. He's not actually going to be.
Does it have a blue and white shirt on like
Yeah.
web modelling?
Yeah. So he's got a whole raft of things. We'll be looking at the year 1 of the LTP, old versus new, so the RFP changes. He's got some sensitivity analysis. He'll run through some movements by percentage and by dollars. He can show you what that looks like for the whole region and by district. Then he's got some sample properties that we've selected. Again, we're able to show what their line by line looks like, so you can see that. And he's done a selection. There's probably a few more that we need to do to so that we can highlight those. We can't do all of those in the consultation document, but we'll have some examples like that on the website. And then he's done some just overall model summary, like I did there for 23-24 on what the average was. He's got some info on the average and median for year 1. So I'll stop sharing and Sean can jump on and take over.
So just before you start, Sean, Nick, the samples that we're going to get now, will we be able to get these emailed to us so we can, because not everyone will take all this in 100%.
Yeah, it just depends at what level. I mean, it's probably quite easy once you see what Sean's got.
Yep.
He's sort of got a table with them, and it lists them, and that's quite concise. But then what he'll do is he'll open it out and show the detail. Once you open it out,
Yep.
it runs into, once you've got 40 of them, and each one of them is 10 lines. You're going to have 400 lines. So you'd have to, I don't know, maybe you can just send it in a spreadsheet that you can do something with. We'll have a look afterwards what we can send out. Because it was, as we went through, we were considering just trying to put it all in and then have 100 slides like you really wanted. But it's quite, you've got to do a lot of formatting and stuff to actually dump it in, so it was easier to do it this way. But
Good.
We'll send something out. But we've also got in the model, there's still some tweaking and stuff that we're doing. We only really got the output last week, and Sean's been doing a lot of reviewing of it. But there's still more that, as we go through, we go, is this quite set up right? So, the aim is that as we progress, by the time we get to, the consultation, we'll know that it's 100%, and people, when they go in and look at their property, it'll, that will accurately show it. And then at the moment they're doing it offline. We're going to drop that whole model onto our server, and then we'll actually be able to run it live off the rating database. Every time the rating database gets updated every month, it'll get updated with those live changes.
Right. To you, Sean.
All right. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Sorry, I'm not there in person. It does make it a lot easier for me to hear online. So I hope the enthusiasm levels are good as we go through all these numbers. But I hope not to provide any more confusion. But I'm going to start first of all. Hopefully you can see that screen all right. It's a bit more.
We zoom in.
Yeah, you might need to make it a bit bigger.
That's good.
Bit better.
Yep.
So I'm just attempting here to give a bit more elaboration on why there are changes between the amount that we were collecting before the rating review and the amount we're collecting after the rating review. So we've touched on a few of these things, but just to put a couple of notes there that the general rates are dropping down because we have disestablished the sub-regional general rates. So hoping everyone knows what the term sub-regional general rate is. Just the other ones to point out that the East Taieri drainage targeted rate is moving to a one zone rate, still based on area, and there's no differentials, meaning it's not spread across different classifications. The Lower Taieri flood protection rate is to become a two zone targeted rate with 11% of it across the east side and 89% across the west. That is, those percentages are based on the split as it is now. The new catchment management rate, just across the whole region based on CV. The harbour management new rate is uniform across all districts except Queenstown Lakes District. The Dunedin and Wakatip transport targeted rates, you can see them coming down. Just to acknowledge there that that's largely because there's now a 20% general rate portion. And just so you're aware, combined in that figure is both the new targeted rate and the collection of the deficits. And the new targeted rate is a uniform charge across the whole district. And of course, the deficit's going to be collected across the existing scheme. So no change in emergency management or biosecurity. River management schemes are all the same, except you'll be aware that we are joining the Wanaka and Wakatipu river management schemes together. And we have shifted the Lower Waitaki flood protection rate and the Alexandra flood protection rate to river management. The rural water quality rate has been disestablished. We touched on the dairy environmental monitoring rate is going to be collected for one more year, and then it moves to a farm plan rate next year. Leith flood protection, just a note there that the indirect portion of the Leith is now across the whole Dunedin City District. Lower, yep.
It takes it right out to Mosgiel and Strait Taieri.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. I mentioned Lower Waitaki moving to Waitaki river management. The Lower Clutha flood protection and drainage targeted rate will be two zones, split 68% rural, 32% urban. Those percentages are what they are now, except they're across multiple classifications, so it's moving to two. Similar scenario for Toko, and the last one is the West Taieri drainage targeted rate is moving to a one zone targeted rate. So hope that gives a wee bit of clarification around all those types of rates changing.
I just said, some of those there, remember the targeted, the flood and drainage and they've all moved to 80-20 or 90-10. So that's why you're seeing some of those, some of those rates for, some of those schemes then are dropping in year one, because effectively that's just what you're seeing is just the targeted rate.
Yep.
Because the targeted rate might have gone from 84% down to 80.
Yep.
So the way we've done our rates across the whole 10 years, and we'll touch on this in the financial strategy in a couple of weeks, but we've tried to show here that you can there see the benefit of that rating change, i.e. the targeted rate bit has actually dropped, even though over the, there is actually increased spend proposed, but we've done that through the smoothing. And just the other thing is the sub-regional stuff that's in general rate. The other thing, that's not all, those decreases aren't all just because the sub-regional's coming out. A big part of that general rate is the move. There was a lot of general rate funded activity that has now gone to catchment management. So, the catchment management rate is very much, it's effectively another general rate. Yeah. But it's clearly identified that, that it's for that catchment management purpose.
Nice.
But question,
Yeah, Nick, just could you just clarify for us the basis for the deficit repayments for transport?
So what we've done, and obviously this workshop, so we'll bring this and how we've done it and to you in 2 weeks and see whether that's what you're comfortable with. But what we've done is we've worked out what the deficit, we forecast what the deficit would be, and we basically said take the deficits that we're forecasting at the end of this financial year and have them repaid over this 3 years of the next LTP period. So basically just divided by 3, that amount is repaid across the 2 schemes, but it's repaid by the old RFP rating areas. So it's if you like, the current rating zones that are mapped. So for Dunedin, it's sort of defined, it's not the whole of the district. For QL, for Queenstown, it's just that Wakatipu area. It's not the whole of QL district. And it's on a capital value basis. Whereas the new cost going forward is being done on the new basis, which is district-wide on a uniform basis. When you see some of the examples, you'll see examples where you can see what the new uniform rate is, and then you see still the old amount being repaid as well.
yeah, thank you. Kate,
I'm really comfortable with the idea of enlarging the areas of passenger transport rate take. I have to say that I had always thought it would be done possibly in tranches that were slightly different from a whole going right across being equal on everybody. And I appreciate that there was possibly time for that discussion earlier. And that, for example, and again, just reiterating, I think I compared it to the stadium rate where we had tranches as you went out further away, because I think this will be, because I haven't seen the figures, individual properties, it will be really hard on places like the ones at Te Rawiti and Dunedin boundary who are paying a substantial new increase for both lead protection and for buses on capital value. It just seems difficult if it's not done by tranches out, I'm sorry.
It's not on capital, the new rate's uniform.
Uniform, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, so we'll see that figure,
Yeah,
we'll see
yeah,
that
yeah,
figure,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
and that will form the basis.
Are both done uniform?
Yep.
The indirect flood,
No,
leaf indirect,
I thought we were talking transport.
both, I said both leaf and the
Oh.
indirect and the cumulative effect of that will be quite.
Yeah, Leith indirect is capital based.
Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Somerville,
Yeah, the river management rate used to be done district wide or something. What's the proposal? How's that managed in this one?
Yeah, it is district. Sean, you can probably click on that and open it up. And you can see the various, there's the various districts there.
Okay.
So it's still all done on separate districts. Like Sean said, we still need to, what we've got is the rating amount. We need the Wanaka and Wakatipu effectively becomes one. And there'll just be a new Queenstown rate. It's just the way that that it's been set up in the model is it still shows the two separately because that's what's going to that old area, but effectively there'll be the 5 rates going forward.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, I'll move on to some sensitivity analysis. Share my screen, make it a bit bigger. Tell me I've got to stop sharing and then do another one. How does that look?
Good.
Bit bigger. Fall off the screen. All right. What we have here, this is one of the great advantages of the IBIS modeling tool. This is the sensitivity analysis across the entire region. This particular graph in front of you is a percentage banding graph. So each of those columns represent this table on the right. So for example, that tall column is showing 10% underneath is in fact this row here, if that comes up, which is 10 to 15%, there are 27,747 assessments that are going up between 10 and 15%. So just a bit of a visual showing across the region, all rate assessments in the region, with quite a few of them falling in across 5 or 6 kind of groupings there. And just noting there's a group there between 25 and 50%, there's 15,000 assessments going up between 25 and 50%. So these are percentages, and then I've got these little tables on the right that filter it out, which allows us to have a bit more in-depth look at a district, for example. So just for visual purposes, if I click on Queenstown Lakes District, you can see the graphs changed, and I touched on 25 to 50% being high across the region. As you can see, that quite a lot of it is in Queenstown, and that will primarily be because the Wakatipu or the Queenstown transport rate is being spread across the entire district. So all those parts outside of Wakatipu are now paying a new transport rate. So the other ones.
Sorry,
Sorry, Sean.
is there one that's got a 200%? Right, what's the one in the 200%? I just want to check that I'm reading that.
Yep, there is one. I'd have to go away and grab it for you if you're really interested, but it'll be, yeah, I'd have to go away and find it.
A really low rate that is going up because of it's a low rate now, but with buses would be going up. So it's an outlier. It's not a 20,000 going to a 40,000. Sorry, 60,000.
Yeah, and
No,
that's what we'll
Yeah.
as we go through this,
Yeah.
we'll click on all of those and go, what are we talking about there? Because, you know, it could well be that in fact it's something only going up a few dollars and you
Yeah.
go, okay, well, we don't worry. That's why
Yeah.
Sean's got here percentages. He's also got dollars that we can look at and see what the dollar movements are for all the properties as well. But yeah, we need to look at that. There's also, like Queenstown has the transport impact, but there's also the thing that you got to remember. We had the general rate was dropping down, but the catchment management rate was going, you know, coming in. Net, that's an increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Queenstown gets impacted by general rates more than the others because it's got the biggest share of capital value. So there's sort of two things. There's one, you know, they're getting their percentages because they're getting a fixed across everything, across Wanaka and Queenstown for transport, and there's the impact of an increase in general rates or general ISK rates, and that drives the increases in Queenstown.
Yeah, Elliot, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just checking if this was assuming the same capital value from year to year.
Yeah, it's to keep it comparable, we the rating base that was used for 23-24, all the capital values, land values and area, yeah, we're using that same base for modelling the 24-25 rates.
Well done.
Right. I'll just quickly touch on Dunedin percentage sensitivity. Looks slightly different, but I just wanted to just point out that there's a few reductions in Dunedin, primarily being due to the Dunedin transport differentials. By removing that, it means a reasonable number of commercial properties are getting a reduction. I'll maybe just touch on one more, just a bit of a glance. I know it's going to probably raise more questions, but just to give you an idea.
Sean, don't be worried about raising questions, because I think that if that does happen, that just completes our understanding of things. So don't panic if you think it might generate some questions.
Yep.
Do it, and that
Okay.
just understand. So don't panic.
Cool. No, so back, I've now lifted that filter off the districts, so we're back at the regional level. And I just wanted to show you the land use group called rural. It's called stock finishing, but it's primarily all of where most of our farms sit land use wise. I was just going to click on that and show you what that looks like. So there's although that's a big bar, the actual grouping is quite a small grouping, but there's a bit of reduction in some of the rural properties. And if I've got my facts right, I think by removing the rural water quality rate, which was only charged on rural property, that's contributing to some of that. And of course, that's embedded in the new catchment rate or catchment management rate, which goes across the entire region and of course across all land use groups.
Sean, just a week, how much easier is this system for you? Look, it's making it very good for us to see.
Yeah, it's going to be good, Kevin. I think it's got some great features, and although we don't have the software yet, we're going to be able to see a lot more of this information, particularly as our rates go up. We'll be able to use the tool to really see which ratepayers are paying how much in more in-depth ways, which will be good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and of course, as Nick mentioned, the charts there, or percentage charts, of course, the dollar charts just provide another level of analysis, and they are are shown there. I had a bit of a chat with Nick this morning, and we want to get some of these bands redone, because as you can see, we've got, if I just sum up all of those numbers, there's 124,000 assessments across the region, and we've got half of them all in one band there, so not terribly helpful, this graph. If we could split that out more, you'll see some across maybe $10 to $30 being a number, and then $30 to $50 being a number. But you can see quite a bit in that range. So I just wanted to touch these. There's a dollar one, but I don't think it's as meaningful as the percentage one.
So this was, yeah, when we looked at this, so that big bar is $10 to 100. So, and everything's in there. So when I looked at this, I thought, I want to see the distribution across that, because the next bar is 100 to 150, and then 150 to 200. So they're in $50 ones, but the one below is a $90 one. So we just need to get them to redistribute so that we can sort of see or reset up the bands so that we can see the distribution a bit better. But fundamentally, you can see, yeah, certainly the bulk of it is all down, below $100, which you're seeing some pretty scary percentages. But this is what, when we switch into dollars, all of a sudden it doesn't look quite so scary.
It takes the big gasp out of the 69 with a 200% increase. It takes that gasp out. You can, yeah, in reality, it's.
There are still some up there, smaller numbers certainly,
Yeah,
but up there in the thousands of dollars, and that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and we'll go through, as we said, this is pretty hot off the press. Sean's working on it. We'll be able to go through and say, well, what are those properties? Where are they? What type are they? And, is there, what is the reason for that? Because, depending on what the reason is, you go, yeah, well, that's actually sort of to be expected. They're now picking up, effectively picking up more of that, say the, catchment management and that sort of stuff that they never picked up any of before. So a bit more analysis to do, but at least it's easy to do from here.
You can't see the full amount.
Yeah, they can't see the
that's
bars
not
there. So,
$1.
yeah, Alan, I'm wrong there, because I just looked at the last blue dot on that line, and those ones, yeah, I took that as the highest rate was that 400. In fact, there are. I just went straight for the blue line, you see.
Yeah.
Excited too quick.
Keep going, Sean.
Keep going.
Well, I'll just quickly show you the Queenstown district, just to give you a bit of a sense of dollar-wise, because there's quite a bit of movement in Queenstown. So you can see there, there's almost 7,000 rate assessments getting an increase between $150 and $200. And there's a further almost 4,000 getting an increase between 200 and 400. So just wanted to show you that, and just quickly touch on Dunedin dollar-wise. There's a few decreases, but if you just look up the table, up the top of the table, there's a few hundred getting sizable decreases, but primarily, a big chunk of Dunedin's getting, not getting a lot of increase, mainly falling in that big band. That's 30,000 out of 50,000, just to give you some idea.
What's that figure? 10.
Yeah, no, it's actually 10
Sean, maybe
to
let's go
100.
through Clutha, Central Otago and Waitaki.
It's that same 10 to 100 increase, and we need to break that out a bit more. But that's where
I'll just touch on Central Otago. This is dollar-wise. Once again, not terribly helpful, as a lot have banded at between 10 and 100. But if you don't mind, I'll just pop back to the percentage one. And you can see Central Otago, the percentage number, 10,000 out of about 15,000 are going to get an increase between 10 and 15%. So back onto the dollar graph, I'll just touch on Clutha. That's what the Clutha one looks like. And Waitaki. Once again, that banding is just a little too, you know, $10 to $100. Just wouldn't mind if we could have a closer look at that. But I might just
Sean, probably also your 5 to 99,000 might be an interesting band.
I think that's your property.
I know which one it is, though.
Sorry, I've ripped off that and now I'm back to the regional level. I just wanted to show you. I don't think these are, I'm just sifting through the different land use codes. There's lifestyle, rural, and about 80% of the region of the 124 assessments is residential. Just scrolling down to residential. There we go, recreational, utility. Of course, it'll be right on the bottom. Residential, single unit. This is where once again, not helpful dollar-wise, but the count of those assessments is 82,000 out of the 124 being residential. And if we elaborate more, but you can see a lot are going to get an increase between 10 and 100. Is there anything someone would like to see further?
We comfortable? A good sample?
You might we just go back to Queenstown again? It just seems, I mean, the scale, I think, makes it look as if it's sort of across the board, but is that scale quite different for Queenstown?
Doesn't seem to be same shape.
Overall,
Queenstown dollar-wise is there. I might just do a further filter, if you like, on just wonder what lifestyle might look like. Because there's quite a number of lifestyle properties.
Queenstown lifestyle, $10.
So some of the lifestyle, I can understand why there's some, you can see some decreases there. That'll probably be because they would have paid quite a high transport rate because it was based on CV. And now that it's a uniform charge, you could probably expect some of them to get a bit of a decrease.
But overall, it's Queenstown that seems to be having the biggest increases. Is that correct?
Yes. We're going to see if these recommendations go through, you're going to see more, I guess, change in Queenstown, but it's, you know, it happens to be a district with high capital value, so some of those other rates that aren't transport come into the mix as well. But I've got a bit of a model summary to show you after one more, which might give you a bit better context, but you're right, there's going to be more increases in Queenstown than the other districts.
Because they've got the highest capital value, so they get a bigger share of the ones that are across the whole region.
Yes.
So your general rate, catchment management rate, which are and biosecurity which is done on land value, again, their land values proportionally are higher. So it's no different than within a TA where certain suburbs get allocated, have higher and get more. It's sort of the same, but we're doing it at a regional level. So some of those rates we pushed up those sort of rates, those general-ish rates, because we've pulled down some of the targeted rate allocations down to the 80-20, down to 80%. And we took away a rural water quality targeted rate, and that's now in catchment management, which is effectively across the whole region, it's like a general rate. So we've moved more into, if you like, the bucket where it gets allocated across the whole region on a value basis, and that means that sort of weights it more towards Queenstown.
So it's the change. I mean, I think we've had this discussion before, Nick, when I basically asked, if capital value is increasing, is our rate take increasing? And you were saying no, it's the way it's allocated. But in this instance, the higher capital value in Queenstown is ensuring that they have a higher rate contribution.
Because we've put more costs, so the rate take has stayed the same. It's still 78 million in both scenarios. It's just that now the allocation has more of that is in the bucket that, if you like, gets done on a value basis, across the whole region. And once it's in that value across the whole region, that's where Queenstown picks up a bigger share, because their value proportionally is more of the capital base.
So this is a one-off change because of the way we're reallocating. Is that right?
Well,
so if the capital value increases in Queenstown, I don't know, 10% a year or more, we're not seeing more rate income coming in, are we?
Not overall, but if their capital value, it's the same as in your district. When you get your TA rates, if your particular suburb goes up more than your capital value and your suburb goes up more than the average across the whole district, you'll end up getting a bigger, they go, oh, well, all the properties rates went up 10%, and you go, but my rate went up 20%, because your value proportionally went up more than all the others. And that what we're seeing is Queenstown values increases are just outstripping everywhere else in the country, let alone everywhere else in Otago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just that's the dollar bar, but the percentage bar for Queenstown. Just showing you that there, which is different kind of look at things as well. Yeah.
25.
Is that all of Queenstown?
Yeah, when we say Queenstown here, when we say Queenstown here, it's Queenstown Lakes District.
Yeah.
It's the TA district, not just Queenstown. So, this includes Wanaka. So some of the Wanaka percentages, Wanaka is now getting a uniform transport rate that they didn't get, that they had zero. I think from memory, it's about $130 odd. So straight away, that's going to impact their percentages. But Sean's got some examples of property. He's got a Queenstown property and he's got a Wanaka property, and you can see what those increases are made up of. So again, once you get into the dollars and you start breaking it down, it probably doesn't look as scary as the percentages here.
So say a house in Shotover Country, will we be able to see a specific example of?
I don't know if Sean's got a Shotover Country one in his examples, but we can go find one and just and provide that. So it could be that as we go through, we need to look at what our examples are that it's very clear. Obviously, with this, once we've made it available in the rates calculator, everybody in Shotover Country can go and look at their own property and work it, see what it's doing.
Yeah. Okay, cool, thanks.
So yeah, I'll just mention too, just so you're aware, that the 30,000 rate assessments in the Queenstown Lakes District, for memory, Wanaka is huge now. It's about, I think 13,000, 14,000, something like that, and that's Wanaka, Hardware, etc. So that'll be contributing to that bar there. Right. I'll move on to some samples if there's no other questions.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
All right.
Big help, especially with some of the changes proposed. Quite a context sort of place.
But that's.
So just going to blow that up a wee bit. So, and I'll just run you through this sheet. Hopefully that looks all right on the screen. It's possibly not a very good selection on my part, but I've got basically what's there, about 40 odd valuation assessment numbers, or properties rating assessments. I put a little title on column A just to give you just a bit of idea what it is. So the top one's a Palmerston resident, and then over in column F is what the rates are pre the rate review, but that's still the rate based on the 78 million that we're collecting, and then what the rate number looks like post the rate review. So this example at the top, whose rate bill was $382, there's a little plus button here that gives me the rate types. So it's going up $100, as you can see, and what's contributing to that is the in this example, the transport fixed charge of $164 is more than what they were paying in transport rates when it was a capital value based rate. So that's just giving you a bit of an example of a Palmerston residential property. It's going up $100, or potentially going up $100. And you can see in red are the ones that are going down, and obviously the black ones are the ones going up. So I've got the word drill beside them, but if you want me to look at different ones, but just starting with the Dunedin Stadium, whose rates would have been 338,000. It's going up slightly to 366,000. And what's causing that? Well, they're getting a reduction in the transport rate because we're not charging that on capital value anymore. And their transport fixed charge is small. And then, but they are getting an increase. Hopefully my screen's still there. They are getting an increase in the Leith flood direct rate, which is kind of cancelling out the transport rate. So that's showing you the Dunedin Stadium. Squash that up again, and I've got a whole bunch here. That's another good one. I'll just
Still in the airport, actually, if you want to.
yeah, yep, Dunedin Airport. Yeah, so Dunedin Airport has a number of sections, if you like. It's got rural, land, industrial, but the main airport itself is it's going down $26,000, primarily due to the lower Tory flood protection rate, which was that particular zone, WF1, in the old rating model would have paid a large share of the rates, If we move to 2 zones for Lower Taueri, one for east and one for west, that's what would happen to the airport. It would get a reduction of 26,000.
That maybe, is that picked up in the airport rural though, or one of those other ones?
No, it's picked up WF1.
Yeah.
If you remember that, so the Taueri, we've still got
Yes.
east and west. So WF1 is dropping, all the other WFs were going up. So it's just so they're in WF1, so they go down, the other WFs will go up.
Two.
Yeah, so they should have drainage. See the drainage, is there 2 drainage there? Yeah, drainage, their drainage is going down as well, because below that they're in WD1, and again, WD, that's going to all one, their WD1 pays the most, so that's actually dropping, just that's showing, you need to net that off with the uniform piece up above. It's just the way the model's set up. So in fact, their drainage is going down by about 600 or 700, and their flood's going down by about 26,000. That'll be consistent for anybody who's in the WF or the WD. They'll see a decrease, but there'll be an offsetting increases in some of those other WFs and WDs.
Can we look at those?
So we said the EDs
Just
are
some
probably more.
examples of those.
Sean, I don't know. You did have somewhere one that had. Did it have a W? One of the other W.
West Taueri rural, number
East
25.
Taueri drainage.
25, I'll just see what we've got here. I did intend to get a East Taueri drainage. This one looks similar to the airport, unfortunately. Just let me have a wee look. What else have I got?
East Taueri, we've got Taueri Farmwork or something.
Yeah, those. Most
Yeah, West Taueri Farm, line 45, that's gone up. So that's probably in one of the other other west zones.
Yeah, where you've balanced it out over the
Yeah.
whole zone.
So you can see there that's in WF2 and WD2. So their flood protection, WF2, has gone up 600, but their drainage has gone up, the net of the 6,400 negative the 2,500. So that they've got a $4,500 increase, and that's from making it uniform, the same rate across all of those WD zones. So the one are getting decreases and the others are getting increases. Which is what we expected. That modelling that I did, sort of that's what it showed. And unfortunately, that's the thing, when you've got such a highly differentiated allocation model, which we've got, once you get below the targeted rate amount, then it's so highly differentiated, any changes you make are going to have massive swings up and down.
Right,
Yep.
so those ones we're talking about, those drainage or flood rates, they're based on land. Are they land capital value?
Flood is based on capital value, drainage is based on land area. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah, land area. So we're saying when we're talking the drainage rates in this West Taueri one, we're saying that the airport land is no more valuable than the farmland side. It's because based on area.
Yeah.
Yep.
For drainage, yeah.
So there's no more greater consequence to the airport than to the farm.
But it's still drainage. All you're doing is
Flooding.
no, but flood's done on capital value, so then it is higher. But this is drainage, is just the water, you're draining the water off every day.
The airport's owned 50% by the government, right? Is there any kind of, are they fully rated? Is the airport fully rated, or is there some sort of?
It's not about ownership. It's about the area that is non-rateable under the Act, which is effectively the runway area. So their terminal and car park and all of that is still rateable. That's why they've got that capital value. And I did some numbers in some of those earlier, in presentations and stuff. Overall, the airport accounts for about 1% of the total area in the Taieri in that west scale. I've got it. I'd have to go dig it out what it is. It's not material, unlike the university and Polytech and the non-rateable capital value that's sitting in the Leith is massive compared to the rest of the scheme.
Yeah, Lloyd.
Sorry, I
Button.
can I allow the debate a little bit?
No, button. Yeah.
Sorry, I have to disagree a little bit because around the airport stuff, because just previously in the safety and resilience, it's all about the flood bank and the effect to be able to rank the importance of the flood bank based on risk. As soon as the airport comes into consideration, the risk model goes up about 3 steps because that would be impact the whole of the target. So this comes right back to my original argument that there's the maintenance of the flood and drainage schemes has a greater impact on all of Otago because of the airport, etc., because of its impact. Because we're actually building these, we're maintaining to a higher standard these flood banks because the airport's there. If it was only a farmland there, it wouldn't be rated so high. We're also said in the previous presentation that the upper half, the East Taieri area, has natural drainage from Wingatui all the way down.
Hey, Lloyd.
I'm sorry, but
Lloyd, listen to me. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that's a really, really valid point, and I think we need to actually explore that when we take it to the next level of. Here's this. This is showing us what. Listen to me. This is showing us what our decisions of prior to Christmas did to rating impacts. So what we've got between now and when we get on the 21st is develop those arguments to say, well, actually, we might need to move some of those boundaries somewhere. And I'm absolutely agreeing with what you're saying, but it's just how we move those around. So
I'll just say 5 words, 4 words. If it's not right, it's not right. It's not 4 words, it's 5. That's
So just support what Kevin said, because I know that quite those comments were very good. No, this is just reflective of the decisions that council made in December, and we're not going to change this unless there's changes to council's decision at the February meeting. So that's a conversation for this table to have, not and obviously we take feedback on board, but as far as we're concerned, those decisions that were made will be reflected in the consultation document unless there's changes at that February meeting.
So perfect. Elliot.
Just to sort of go back to Crown Land and stuff, I was just wondering, the Otago Uni part of stadium, is that like the Unipol part, and is that just not Crown Land because of some weird technicality or something?
I think, yeah, it's part of this. I'm not quite sure, but I do believe there is a part of the stadium is occupied by the Otago, Uni Otago and the Dunedin whatever trust owns the stadium. It's like a combined ownership thing, I think. Might have that wrong, I'm not quite sure. I could look it up though.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. I'll just I mentioned Wanaka residents. I'll just touch on one there. Just wanted to. This might be kind of a typical Wanaka property, going up $200 from 500 to 700, and there's a combination of the transport and the new catchment management rate. And just to note, Contact Energy, they're getting an increase. And the top one, I think, is the Clyde Dam. And whilst the general rate goes down, the catchment management is contributing towards an increase, but they pay a lot of rates, so it's a big increase, but there's a percentage of the rates. It's a bit different.
Sorry,
So just overall, Sean and Nick, are you seeing a fair allocation of the rates with this new model?
Yeah, I think I think what you're seeing here is you're seeing properties paying more what I would expect. You've got, say, if you take the stadium, for example, their transport rates dropped, but now they're actually paying, they haven't got their own special differential. We've taken that out for lease. So overall, it's sort of fairly, it's not dissimilar. They're just paying a different mix. And yes, it's gone up a bit, but again, those are high value, like if you take Contact and the stadium, yeah, they've gone up sort of, 20 to 30 grand each, but that's the impact of high capital value getting bumped up. So I sort of, all of this I think is certainly what I was expecting. But as I said, the bit probably where it gets interesting is within the flood and drainage still, because of the fact that you change to the one zone, if you've got 5 or 10 zones, you're now just reshuffling within there. And again, there's a smaller pool and so you start getting bigger swings in up and down.
look, thanks for that opinion, Nick, but what we've got to be very careful of, this is reflecting what our decisions are made. And so what we have to be certain is that we are comfortable with the impacts that it is making. And we've got to be comfortable with the stories behind why we've made those decisions, so we can in fact sell those, the consequences of those decisions to our ratepayers. So probably today is about gleaning the information or further information that we may need to make those stories and make those sales to our ratepayers in the best possible position that we can. Thanks for your opinion, Mr. Donnelly.
Nick, just to confirm, these, or for Dunedin and Queensland, also include paying back the deficits of transport. Yes. They're built in.
So Sean, if you click on
and I suppose the reason I say that is that that is a big issue for us, that we have to rate to pay back not insignificant deficits in those two areas, on top of funding ever increasing costs to maintain the public transport service or increase it where we choose to. So we're just going to need to front up to that, depending on what decision council makes in terms of how to pay those back at the 21st of February meeting. But it does, whatever Dunedin's up close to 10 million, trying to pay that back over 3 years is a big cost on top of what we would rate, and shows the importance of ensuring that we set a balanced budget and then are very careful about decisions we make during the year that will have an impact on the end of year result and possibly result in us creating these deficits again. But it's going to be an issue for us in those two areas that we are going to have to be rating to repay.
Sean's got the example there of residential, but so he can probably talk you through that one. Then if he showed you the stadium again, you'll see the stadium will have this. It'll have a fixed charge that's low, but then it'll still have a high old rate being repaid for the deficit.
It doesn't have the deficit.
So it's getting 38,000 still to pay back the deficit, that one there, and the new, which is this one down here, getting the uniform charge as well.
Yeah, the 38,000 paid back to deficit. Its actual rate if you didn't have the deficit would be $328.
Yeah.
Why is the fixed charge different? Did I see a different number?
There's 2 titles included in this.
Between that and the Dunedin resident example.
So this one here, it's got 2 fixed charges on the one. It's the stadium. When you look at it, we think of it as the stadium. When you actually have a look and you look at that analysis that I did pre-Christmas, it'll always have two properties.
Yeah.
Because it's got two, and so what you're seeing there is two fixed charges, yep.
Can we just go back to Dunedin residential then? Would be good.
Right.
Thank you.
So that one's just that times two.
Yeah. So their repayment of the loan, as it were, or the reserve is $49 that they'll continue paying for 3 years. And but their standard transport rate will be $164.
Correct. Yep.
On those repayment of the loan transport charges, does that old differential remain in there too?
Yep. It's done on exactly the old RFP.
As it was.
So-
Yeah.
Defined zone with differentials, yep.
Comfortable?
There's no more on the samples. I've got one more summary to show you, then I'll hand back to Nick.
Thank you.
It's this one. Okay, so this is very quick. It's just at a glance to give you some further information, I guess. So there is the count of assessments across the region amongst the districts, and the 23-24 column is what we collected this financial year, 64 million. There's the 78 million that we're going to collect prior to the rate review, and of course that's what it looks like after. So there's you know, total wise across the districts, you can see the amounts, and out to the right I've got that basically the averages for those three scenarios, and then the medians for those three scenarios. So the average rates, which is basically, you know, the sum divided by the count, Clutha, Dunedin and Queenstown figures are there, but just, you know, you'll be aware, of course, that Queenstown and Dunedin pay transport, and Clutha has a large flood scheme. That's why there's some differences there. But that's what the new average would look. Sorry, this column here is what the new averages might look like. So there, from an average perspective, Queenstown 594 going up to 831. And I've got the medians because they do look quite different. Median is the middle number in a range, because that looks quite different to the averages. So I've just popped them there to show you what a median looks like. And of course, out to the farthest on the right, there's the median of what the rate bill might look like if we go ahead with the rate review. $600 is the middle rate for Queenstown.
Yes, Kate.
It seems incongruous that we've added 3.8 million to the Dunedin budget, and it hasn't gone up more for repayment for transport, that it hasn't gone up on average more than Queenstown. Not those numbers, those numbers there from the previous one. I just find it incongruous.
She's got 55,000 rating units, so it's the number of rating units.
And you've got offsetting that, you've got other, you know, like the new rate, yeah, 20% of that has now gone into general rates. So, you know, there's, yeah, again, some of the way we've done like the new rates would have dropped it. And so all that deficit repayment is filling some of that void.
I think we've moved the ships on the chairs on the Titanic to a certain extent. I'm not sure that we've actually made the.
That's under navigational rate now, not harbour master rate.
Yeah.
So what we've got here is an increase of 14 million, 64.78. So that's an increase of 14, isn't it? So that's about a 21% increase, isn't it?
Yep, which Nick and the team are working on to get back into the parameters that we talked about prior to Christmas. In the ELT.
No, you have to take, don't you have to take that 3.8 and the Wakatipu off that as well? because that is it. Yeah,
When we presented the numbers before Christmas, we didn't have the deficit repayment. And we had also assumed a continuation of the QRDC contribution to public transport, so we need to factor those in, but even with that, there has still been some increases as we've gone through the wash up we need to reduce, but it will, as Nick said at the start, it is 21% and it's about 11 if you take the transport out. And so we are working to bring that 11 down. We can't really, well, no, sorry, when we bring the Dunedin transport information back to you, there's a decision to make there that will have an impact as well. So there's still a few things to happen between now and February. And then a number of decisions for this table to make in February so that we can lock in that consultation document.
February now. So it's February now.
later.
February the 21st is coming to us.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
21, yeah.
Excellent.
Well,
Enjoy that
that's-
toy, Sean. Enjoy that new toy.
It's really informative.
Absolutely. Well, I'll stop sharing. I'll hand back to Nick.
Thank you.
There's more to come from Sean on UAGC.
Okay.
Where are we? Share screen. So we'll go back to we'll go back to some summary slides. Where's mine? There it is. Right. So done that. So uniform annual general charge. So what we've got here is just got a little bit of summary info to give you some background, and then Sean can show you what's happening with the UAGC in the actual model, and he's done some other analysis, so he'll run you through that. So just to give you the background, the uniform rates or the UAGC. So that little box down the bottom, we covered that off in a June workshop where we were looking at rate types. So currently, council sets a UAGC at 25% of general rates. So that leaves 75% of general rates charged on capital value. And council's done that because capital value is perceived to reflect the ability to pay better than other methods. So the UAGC has been, it's primarily been used to manage the difference between the population and property values, because as you saw in those earlier graphs for this year's rates, 55,000 out of the 124,000 ratepayers are in Dunedin. But when you get into capital values, in fact, Queenstown District with a bit under 30,000 ratepayers has a higher capital value base than Dunedin. So what that does is pushes, disproportionately to the population base or the number of rating units, pushes more of the general rates to there. Uniform targeted rates. What we've tried to do is look at those ones, and the changes we made is one of it was like with bringing those transport and the navigational safety or harbour master ones, and we've got CDEM or the emergency management. Those are all sort of perceived to be people related rather than property related. So they're based. So then we've used uniform for those. Now when you calculate the UAGC,
Just a question here, Nick. From Elliot.
I can come back, but I was just going to ask if you could speak more to the managing the difference between population and property value.
well, that's what all I'm saying is,
Again, please.
if you do it purely on capital value, then what it would do is it pushes more when you do a UAGC, because you bring in a base of a flat rate, it then it flattens the curve a bit and brings the capital value portion down. So you can't get all the way down to doing it on a so that it mirrors the distribution by number of rating units, but it does flatten the curve.
I'm just wondering why that's an aim necessarily,
What's that?
flattening that curve per se.
Because we get look, I mean, you get ratepayers who come to us, and you get, depending on where they are, some ratepayers go, why do I pay so much more rates compared to my neighbour? And they have a perception that it's service based and that they go, I'm getting the same. So capital value, as all the studies say, aligns better with people's ability to pay. If they're in a high value property, they've probably got the ability to pay higher rates. So that's why it's there. But you get to a point of, do you want it all based on that, or is there a baseline of amount that everybody should pay, and then you go above that, and it's it's variable. So it's a fixed and variable mix, and you're trying to balance it. Yeah. Well, you'll see when Sean does some graphs what the difference makes. Where I say flatten the curve, it's not flattening it to where every ratepayer is paying the same. There's always going to be a difference. But as you would have seen probably earlier, even this year, the proportion that Queenstown is paying has definitely risen. And over time, over the last 5 or so years, they've started to outstrip, and it could go even more. So that's actually a decision for council to make. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with it being allocated that, yes, that's where the capital base is, that's where the rates go? Or do you want to see a spread that potentially evens it out a bit more, and that would mean a higher UAGC?
Right. Yeah, sorry. I'm just sort of wondering why that's necessarily in the advantage column, that part as well, the reducing rates on high value properties.
But well, if you're a high value property, yeah, just because you're a high value property, do you have this comes back to what are we actually doing, and should, for example, one of the things we did with not UAGC, but uniform rate, with the new transport rate, we've done it uniform, because if we did it on a capital value, then rural properties, for example, would be paying significantly more. So we've said everybody's going to pay a flat fee, if you like, as opposed to swaying it that way. So it all comes down to how do you want to slice up the pie? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering why we've put that, why we've said that's a good thing necessarily.
Could you repeat that, sorry?
Elliot, I think rather than advantages and disadvantages, that should just be one list of outcomes. Because it is, you're right, that's an opinion as to whether it's an advantage or disadvantage, and what they are is outcomes of UAGC.
It makes sense.
Okay.
It's a fair.
One of the other outcomes is if you don't have a UAG, and we saw this probably about 10 years ago in Dunedin City, people would not invest in low quality houses because the effect on their rates would be substantial. Now, where we've got a housing crisis of low quality, if you really want to drive bad investment, it is by not having UAG. If it's all capital value, and what will stop a landlord investing is the chance of a huge rates increase. And then we were getting that with heritage buildings previously, because we didn't have a mechanism. We had to introduce a mechanism to reduce the way that went up. So I'm just saying it can have really negative effects on investment in low level housing.
All right.
Reverse results.
So calculation of the UAGC. So the first thing is there's a cap of on uniform rates. So only 30% of your total rates can be uniform. Uniform means a rate that every single ratepayer pays in the district. So although we've got uniform rate, you've got a uniform transport rate in Dunedin and a uniform transport rate in Queenstown, they're different, and they don't, because they don't get paid by every 124,000 or 118 contiguous. They don't count as part of as uniform in that cap. So out the side there, got a little bit of a calculation to say in the new model, 68 million of our 68 million is our total rates. That's GST exclusive. If we were to charge, if we were to have 30% uniform, you could have 20 million uniform. That would, you take off emergency management because that is uniform. So you could have a UAGC amount that could be as high as 16.6 million. Our general rates is 30.2 million. So that would mean you could actually charge 55% of your general rate as a UAGC and still stay within our 30% total rate cap. What we currently do on the right-hand side is, and this is in the model because this is how we currently do it, is we charge 25% of general rates, which is 7.5 million, yeah, as a UAGC. We've then got emergency management, which is 3.7 million. So we have 11.356 million of uniform rates, which is 16.7% of total rates. I did some analysis. I got some analysis that follows with looking at distribution of the current, although it's based on the current 23-24 rate and what that looks like if you took away a UAGC. And then there's some model analysis where Sean has done some modelling on if you didn't have a UAGC, but if you actually increase the UAGC, I think he used 40% of general rates. And down the very bottom right of that box as well, just got some analysis. Another thing to look at is while we calculate UAGC based on what the general rate amount is, so we do 25% of general rate, you got to remember the catchment management and biosecurity rate are actually regional rates that everybody, all 124,000 properties pay. They're on, one's on capital value, one's on land value. So they're very similar to your general rate. So if you added them, you could go, well, that number's 40 million or 40.9. You could then go 25% of that is actually 10.2 million. Yep. That's an extra 2.688 million on the current level of UAGC. So I'd go through some distributions, and Sean can do is, there's lots of options here. Anywhere from zero, if you like, zero to the full 30% of total rates. It's just a matter of where council sits on where would you want it. And currently, we're sitting smack pretty much in the middle at 16.7. That is down from our current year percentage of the uniform percentage of total rates is 19%. So as things are sort of moving around, particularly with moving some of the general rate out into that catchment management rate, that percentages of total rates is dropping. This is just some distribution information. So currently this is the current year. So that 32 million is our current general rate this year, which I think it's including GST. So that's with 25% of the general rate being a UAGC. So the average rate that gets paid is 262. This is in general rate. Median's 192. And out to the right, which is highlighted, you can see the distribution in bands. So currently, in the current year, the top 5% of ratepayers pay 26% of the rates. And then if you go up to the next one, the 27% of the of ratepayers pay just over half at 54% of the total rate. So that's how our current general rate gets distributed. When you flick on to the next one, how does it look if you took the UAGC off completely? So this year's rates, if we didn't have a UAGC on general rates, the average obviously stays the same at 262. The median would drop to 165. but the those top 5% of ratepayers would now pay 33% of the total rate. So it goes up 7%, the amount that they're paying. And the top 26%, and I think it was 27 in the previous one, are now paying 61%. So again, that goes up 7%. I haven't looked at, what the movements are maximum, up and down, but that just shows what impact the UAGC has, and that when you have a look at it, like currently, you've got 27% paying a bit over half, and that 27% of ratepayers, if you went to a zero UAGC, it would stay at about 26%, but that increased to paying just over 60% of all of the rates. And to be fair, what you're seeing here, distribution, is probably pretty similar to how the tax system works, so it's not unexpected. And then just did a final one before we jump on to what Sean does, of the general rates distribution based on CV. So the fourth column in, it's only looking at the CV portion of our current general rate and showing that, so this excludes the UAGC, but again, you can see.
Can you move, Sean?
Oh,
Sorry.
I can't. I don't think I can, because it's not on my screen.
No, I haven't got the.
It is on that email you got.
Whether I can show, but what it's showing, you can just see in the yellow is our average CV across the region is 1.0, it's almost 1.1 million. So that one that I've highlighted is where the property value is at 1 million, and basically they're 28% of the properties in the region have a CV of 1 million or more, and those 28% pay 63% of the general rate based on capital value.
Yep.
And then Sean's now got some graphs on that sort of compare the current and the new RFP, year one new RFP, old RFP, and he's also done a 0 and a 40% UAGC. And he's got some district and land use, so you can see, where the distributions go. So I'll jump out. Sean, you can.
When you say 28% of ratepayers pay 63% of the CV portion of the general rates.
Yeah.
That's the same thing as saying 28% of the ratepayers own 63% of the capital value of the region, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Sean.
Or just,
Aren't owners. So in commercial, a lot of the ratepayers are not owners.
Well, it's still based on
Hold it like
it doesn't matter who pays
for all intents.
Yeah, it's still the.
Quite important.
yeah, well, there was a bit of conversation there. I was just having a wee nosy round. It's
Just on that one though, that the property owner is liable for the rates, so he'll either pass it on as a rental or pass it on as you pay the rates if you're the tenant.
Absolutely, but because it's commercial leases do skew what was just said. I'm sorry,
We'll take that offline. Thanks, Sean.
cool. Yeah, just a wee bit of context. I was just having a wee look at the rate database. There's Contact Energy, for example, their capital values, the two dams, is over $1 billion. And there's at the lower end of this CV base, there's something like 5,000 properties under 100,000. So prior to when we did introduce the current UAGC, the spread of general rates was quite vast. So I just thought I'd mention that. So what I've got in front of you here is a graph of the title is called Total Average General Rates, and each of the bars, which represent the 5 districts. The blue bar on the left is what the average general rates were for 23-24 this financial year, and that's the combined UAGC and CV component. And the orange bar, the next one on the right, is what the general rates would have looked like if we applied our current funding policy. And you can see the orange bars there. And the 3 bars to the right are different scenarios of showing the uniform component being 25%, which is the grey bar, 40% being the yellow bar, and the far right, lighter blue, is a 0 uniform rate. Now, these are averages, but if you have a look at Queenstown, which is more pronounced, the 3 scenarios to the right kind of show on an average basis that if you reduced or increased the uniform component to 40%, on average, the ratepayers would see a $30 drop, 440 down to 411. And then if we didn't have a uniform component, their average rates would rise to 490. So that's the more pronounced visual of what different uniform components would do. I wouldn't actually mind if I had time to redo this and show maybe things like what a median would look like, and maybe what an upper quartile might look like, or a lower quartile, that they could look slightly different. So that's that, and then I've got, this is just an extrapolation of the same graph. I don't think it's terribly more useful, but it's just splitting that same graph between CV and uniform. So that just shows you, the uniform components, $69, the dark blue bar, the first dark blue bar of UAGC Central Otago, $69 is the current uniform rate. It would have been $78 if we didn't change our funding. Would have dropped slightly because general rates has gone down to 73. So no, 73 if it was 40% uniform.
No, that's 25%.
It is, it's 25%, correct. Right, and then 117 if it was 40, so it'll go up a lot, and then there'll be no bar if there was no UAGC. So just wanted to illustrate there that, everyone, if we went up to 40%, $69 to $117 is the flat increase people would get. And then I've just simply got 3 graphs showing the total averages by, the land use category. So residential, which is the one I've just brought up, which doesn't shift too much from the total because most of the region is residential. And then what would a rural property scenario look like if we change the uniform components? So you can see there even more pronounced scenario if we didn't have any uniform component for Queenstown. We'd go up $500. That's dipped from the yellow to the light blue. And I've just got commercial on the left here. There's not so many commercial properties compared to residential and rural, but it's a similar sort of scenario. So yeah, they're the graphs I just wanted to show you. Like I say, I think median might be a better way to look at this. What's the middle amount someone might pay if it was 25 uniform, 40 or 0? Any questions?
Got comments?
Comments? Yeah, I think at that time you can, yep.
Yeah, thanks.
You've got
I
3
get-
minutes and I'm closing.
Right.
As long as you like.
I guess this sort of just shows what limited pools we've actually got available. Because I'm not at all happy about having a uniform charge in there because it does tend to load greater rates burden onto those with a lesser ability to pay. But I'm also aware that capital value is a very imperfect tool. And from this information that Sean has shown us, you know, I'd say, oh, let's get rid of the uniform charge, but I'm also not happy the way that loads extra charges onto Queenstown Lakes and onto rural properties, because I'm not trying to achieve that. So I don't quite know where that leaves my thoughts, because I don't like the uniform charge, but I don't like to see those effects it's having. And I suppose I'm regretting that this council made the decision to change the transport rates onto a uniform charge, which has made our rating more regressive in the sense of loading it onto those with a lesser ability to pay as measured by capital value, which I know is not a very good measure, but it's the best one we've got. So I'm not here, and I see that what's happening with Queenstown, and I know that my capital value in Queenstown probably doesn't match very well when compared to ability to pay with overall with the other local authorities. But I don't know what you do about that, or whether there is any solution available to us. So I'm still thinking about that, but I certainly would be very much opposed to increasing the uniform charge and would rather reduce it. I'm still not happy about those other effects that has.
Excellent. Tim?
Yeah, I'm sort of much the same, I think, in terms of that increase for Queenstown. But then again, there's a different makeup of the ratepayer, I understand. I mean, that would be really useful to understand how many investment properties are in Queenstown, how many residential properties are in Queenstown. Because if there's investment properties in Queenstown, which are internationally owned, some of them are empty, you know, you hear these things, but there's no facts. It might seem fairer that there is a bigger allocation of rates to those types of property owners. But once again, I mean, how do you get that information?
Tim, I suppose the contra of that is how many investment properties are there actually in Dunedin? And if you look at the vast area, there's a huge amount of investment properties there anyway. So, yeah, what's the difference between?
Well, I was thinking more about international investment, and whether that's something that's the information's available or not.
In one of the previous workshops, I did have a slide on that. We did do, I'll dig it out because I can't get it on screen here, find out which one it was. But we did the breakdown of where we send our rates bills, and Queenstown had a much higher proportion of ownership based on where the invoices go, where the owners live, than you know, outside of their own district. And we had it broken down to, you know, overseas, Auckland, Christchurch, elsewhere in Otago. And it was, I can't remember, it is noticeably higher because we had it across all of them. So we know that is one of the things that you go, well, yeah, you know, if there's a bigger proportion being paid from outside of the district, are you really that worried about it? Because you go, it's money coming in, but then there's still a portion of people who live in those properties, are owner occupiers, and that they're having to pay that high rate as well. I can dig that out and resend it. The other one that you said about looking at properties that are you know, that are overseas owned and, or, you know, that have a, you don't know the circumstances. Also, whether it's being occupied or not, it's not a basis on which we can set rates, unfortunately.
So is there an ability to have a special targeted rate for instance, an overseas owned property?
No,
You can't do this.
no, it's not a basis that you can set a differential on. You can't set it, you know, you can set differentials on land use and things like that. So, you know, if it's for being used for a certain purpose, but you can't set it based on, you know, there's a list of criteria of what you can differentiate on, and yeah, location of the owner is not one.
There is plenty to think about. Look, the examples, and look, thanks for taking away what happened in November, and we've come back with, was it November? You came back with, put that into numbers and into perspective what that is going to do. I don't think we can change anything from here. What information do councillors need from Nick and his team for us to think of over the next couple of weeks before we get the paper for the 21st? Or do we leave it at that and Nick will provide us with the appropriate information in that paper? Yep, Kate.
I'm really concerned that there are going to be some outliers by what we've done with the lead indirect and with the us, but I could have it wrong. I'd just really like to see some of those outlier areas down in detail, because the ones that I'm really concerned about most of those, probably the substantial farms around Hyde and how that affects them because of the taking on the lead as a capital, and then because they're still in Dunedin City, and the other even around Silver Peaks, and the other one is the effect. What is the cumulative effect of what we've done around some of those farms with the adding the leaf and the transport to some of the Dunedin, the Taieri ones, and the effect of the changes on their flood protection and drainage, because we actually may have completely stuffed up what we intended to do with some of that stuff, but cumulatively.
Yeah. So how could we display that, Nick?
Well, like Sean's selected some properties to do, to do samples on, but we need to sort of go through. Usually when we do our rates resolution, we sort of have some examples of,
yes.
we need to go through and make sure that we've got the bases covered so that you can see that. I think actually those ones that when you open them up, it was probably a bit quick, but the ones that out there for the Taieri, for example, they would have had in those lines, there would have been a leaf line and a transport line. You probably just can't remember what it was because we were talking about just the drainage stuff.
Yep.
So, and then we just need to say, right, well, if there's some that if there's some that you specifically want to see, I'd say, flick us an email and just say, yeah, really interested in this area. And we can go and make sure that there's a sample of that one so that we can, we will go through and we can pull these out and we'll actually, cut and paste them so that we can go, here's an example of, ideally what you'll see is, say, Dunedin, you'll see a residential, and whether it's each district, high, medium, low value, and then we'll do some, like farm properties, and it will get a little bit more complex because out in some of those schemes we'll want to show the different benefit zones.
Yeah.
But we need to go through and pull up a whole suite that we can print out and provide. But if there's specific ones you want to see, then let us know and we'll make sure that we'll cover those ones off.
Yeah, okay. Just before you say that, I think that's a really good idea. I think if anyone's got a specific property type or area that they want to be highlighted and to understand more, let's email to Nick. If you could copy me as well, so I can understand the traffic and I can keep and get that in my head as well. And from that, I think we'll just about distribute the answer to that. Once you've got it on each person's, you can distribute that around everyone, so everyone's getting the same picture. Councillor Pitt.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
and I just have one other, and it's because you picked out, and oddly, I don't know why, Contact, I appreciate they're a high rate payer. The Trustpower, Manawa have some, wind turbines, or no, I don't think they've got wind turbines still, but they've, got, the Pediroa and the payroll schemes. I'm just interested when we look at aspirations for wind turbines, is that taken as rural, or as industrial land or solar energy? I'm just really worried if there are some investments that we're putting into land now that I'm not sure that our rating is particularly helpful. What's the difference between a dam and a solar power, a solar station or a wind turbine, value wise, and where they come?
I don't know, like Sean had the, had the Clyde and Roxburgh dams as
Absolutely,
an example, where I think he also had on there, one of the big ratepayers currently and still going forward is, DCC3 water assets. So all of those should be in utilities, but I've never actually drilled down to see anything around, wind power generation or anything.
Yeah, I've never thought about, because you thought about that we've got big wind turbine site potentially and definitely solar coming up, and whether that would stay, I'm just not quite sure how the capital value's done and when. Yeah, just an interesting question. It's big solar going in Manitoba.
It should be valued, QV.
Yeah,
QV
but
values
as
all that.
utility or as rural, because it has a mixed use, and I don't think we've got a category that provides for a mixed use.
I think that they value it because there was a Wellington case going on around theirs, and they had taken a title and they had split the use between farmland and utility to account for that. And there was ended up going to court over that. So I think they do differentiate it, but we'd need to go and just find some examples and just double check, how it's treated for the ones that we know about.
And Gary, do you want?
You're just asking what we would need further at the next meeting, and I think we did just then, Nick, discuss the rates notices going overseas. That would be really interesting to get a percentage of what that is, of all rate notices. Obviously, the 21% rate increase is something that senior leadership team are going to be working on. And I know that includes transport, but it would be really good to see that coming back down to sort of a level where we're more comfortable imposing a rate increase. I think it's in the plan. It was about 12%, I think, wasn't it?
Tim, if you go back to what Richard said earlier,
Yeah.
that pre-Christmas we were at 9.7, and that's where they're heading back down to.
Yeah, okay. So we just need some
below.
information around there.
Set below. Lloyd?
Could we just have some information around, so the deficit balances in transport, instead of paying them off over 3 years, perhaps we should have a longer term view.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Can we leave the rest to?
I'm just just very conscious that at the end of the day, the gross figure is going to be the one in the paper, including transport.
Yep.
Got Steve Allen.
Are you good? Do you want to talk?
Oh, it's just, all I'd like to see is a family home in Shot Over Country versus a family home in, say, Luggett, in those new subdivisions, just a comparator there.
Mine was the same.
There you go. We would like to see.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the
Yep.
first one? Who was the first post, sorry?
Shot Over Country.
Shot over. Yeah.
Similar
Is that some
properties,
sort of new
Queenstown and
development, is
Wanaka.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
On the Ladies Mile.
Good.
Right, that's-
All right, I'm going to call that a day. Sean, excellent. As I said before, and keep enjoying that tool, and I'm sure as you go on, we will get just some superb figures and data from it. And Nick, if you could, we'll get emails sent to you to for further requests or breakdowns of that. So that would be great. And last,
Sorry,
yep.
I'm presuming that on the 21st, we'll be making some high level calls that will spark some interest in this in the ODT. And the very first time that we're going to be out in the public, we will be starting to get questions actually in Monica. How will we be facilitate those conversations, like having computers online that can give some examples? At the time of the Wanaka show, for example, would that be a
Right,
possibility?
Yeah, when's the Wanaka show?
8th and 9th of March.
Uh,
You may not want to be there, or you may, depending on.
Yeah. the, yeah. Because we won't be, we won't have approved the CD and be out consulting by that.
No, but I
So
think we will
yeah.
be getting some headline news.
Yeah, I mean, we have got all the, all of this, all the information of all the workshops that we've done to date is on the website now.
Right.
And this stuff's going, so, it's, yeah. I don't think we'll be in the position to sort of sit there and go, oh, we can give you your example,
Yeah.
because it might still move around at that point. But all of this background information and where we've got to, like, it's already all out there, the public. I'm sort of surprised the ODT hasn't really been picking up on any of this to date, but it is what it is. They
Keep chatting, and if in doubt, ring me, and we'll keep talking it through, and because the 21st will be a reasonably again, remember, it's the document that's going out for consultation. We send that document out for consultation, and when that goes out, we want to make sure that we're armed with the reasons why we're doing things and the impacts, and understand the impacts that's going to have. So, and from there we can change. But that's what we need to get. We need to have something concrete to consult with. Thanks for your time.
Well done.
Don't ring me in the next 2 days. I'm playing golf.
You might be.
You can ring me as much as you like.
He won't answer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Sean.
you. Enjoy your tour.
All right.
So I found that, Tim, I'll send it out. But it
It'd be
was one
interesting.